Hey everyone, welcome back. I have Turbo with me again. We're doing a little bit of a follow-up to our last video, just with some other information that's come out in recent days. So welcome back, Turbo.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
How are you tonight?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Should
Good.
we, everyone was making fun in the last video because I cut the small talk and went right into everything. So should we, because we don't want to giggle, but should we do that again?
Okay.
Why don't you tell everyone what we're going to talk about?
Okay. Sounds good.
Did you want to give everyone an overview of kind of what we're going to discuss?
Oh, oh, you want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. You want me to lay it out?
Yeah. I mean, just a brief overview, and then we'll go into the first topic.
Okay. Well, we're gonna cover this motion in limine for defense expert witness William A. Tobin for the firearms. And we're going to cover briefly the new filings that we have for the media consortium that was filed on October 1st, which
Hmm.
regarding wanting to get access to the exhibits from the
That was,
3-day.
you mean today?
Well, I was trying not to do that because it's technically the second, right? We're
Right.
not doing dates and days. I was trying to follow your lead there. Um, so yeah, so October 1st was a we had a filing. Did we just get the one today? Gee.
Technically, there were two. There was the
Oh, the exhibit, yeah.
yeah, there was an exhibit in that one. I was glad to see that the the clerks had a nice slower day.
Yeah. I think we'll probably see some more filings before we get to
You,
jury selection, I would imagine.
yeah, I think it's gonna get a little bit darker before it gets lighter.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we also had on October 1st, we also had the deadline for both the state and the defense to submit their exhibits for trial.
We did actually. And do you want to touch on that really quickly because we don't have a
Sure.
ton
Yeah.
to say, about that. But I know that you had the numbers that that you kind of had figured out, at least from what you think that however many other exhibits there are for the defense and then for the
Oh, for
prosecute.
the exhibits from the 3-day pretrial hearings in July and August. Yes. So from my notes, I do have the last exhibit for the defense being stated during Purdy's testimony, and it was exhibit SSS. We were
Hmm.
into the triple digits by then. So I think we have approximately 72 exhibits from the defense from those 3 days. And for the state, the last exhibit number we had from them was number 37. So
Right.
we're over 100, around approximately 109 exhibits, according to my calculations, just from my
Right.
notes, roughly.
But
Of those, I would say, how many would you say were sealed? Like, I would
well,
say
you
not
also
many.
have to remember how many of those are now.
Mm, null and void, basically. Well, okay. So they were entered as exhibits. They're on the public record, right? They're in full court public record. Some of them were sealed. And I would put that number at around 10%. Like, I don't remember them requesting to seal many more than maybe 10. Do you?
Presented were in reference to things that were later deemed to be not allowed in court.
Yeah, sure. But we
So,
also had a lot of
so, but
like
so I'm just saying, so there's a large majority of those exhibits are not any longer, exhibits in the trial. I mean, think
no,
of how many exhibits that were put in that were,
yeah.
so
So, you could argue why can't they be released? therefore. But what I wanted to
Well,
say is there were some filings that the defense had, like for example, the deposition of FBI agent Nicole Robertson. We had an
yes,
awful lot of depots. We had just a wide spectrum of things, and obviously anything to do with there were all kinds of things. We had a
absolutely.
we had a report from Vito that was entered as an exhibit from Keegan Klein's case that pertained to a small report that pertained to Delphi. So, but
Hmm.
those things are, and like you say, if they're out, they're out. If there's no offer of proof being made, then they're not going to be relevant at trial. So I guess you could argue, well, why not have them?
Well, I mean, because to be an exhibit in the trial, that means that it has to be shown to the jury, and those can't be shown to the jury if they have been stricken from being put in court.
Sure, but they can be accessed because they're part of public record. They were part of public record in the 3-day hearings, right?
Right. To the public, but they won't be
Yeah.
exhibits in
Oh,
trial.
yeah, no, no, no. Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Not all of them, at least.
Like, I would just say that I would argue that there are exhibits from the 3 days that could be released. That's what I would say. That would not affect trial and would satisfy, because they made some strong arguments there, and they got into quoting I don't know if
Right. No,
ACR 5 and 7 and,
and I think we're talking about two different things here because because like I agree with you. Like to be for them, if they're insignificant at this point to be released, that's to the media or whatever is fine.
yeah,
Depending on what they are, as long as that they're not sensitive. Of course, they're not going to show some of the crime scene photos,
right.
but but I'm when I'm talking about exhibits, like I'm focused on the exhibits they're going to be shown to the jury, and
Yeah.
so a large portion of those exhibits will not be shown to the jury, so they're not technically any longer exhibits in the trial.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'd have to review that legal filing again, but I do believe that their argument was they were part of a public court hearing, and therefore they were not filed with the court citing those specific rules, and I forget if it was ACR 5B or something and then ACR
Hmm.
7, but but neither the state nor the defense filed them under certain clauses, was my understanding. So therefore they can just be accessed, and that's it, unless and they were very specific, they were not requesting sealed exhibits.
Right.
So I mean, nothing to really do with the trial coming up. It was for the pre-trial hearings. That was the
Right.
yeah.
Right, but I think people get confused, and so
Mhm.
I just like so when we talk about exhibits for trial, like those are no longer exhibits for the trial. Those are exhibits that were part of the 3-day hearings.
Right, yeah.
Um,
Right, so the deadline, that was the first, was
was
for
for the
exhibits
trial.
for trial, but
Yes, exactly.
they won't be released until after, obviously,
Well,
you
we'll
know,
see them. We'll see them in trial, of course.
or well, yeah, yeah, but I mean, like, from a digital, like, they had requested them, whatever the process is, and I think it was actually after, Judge Gall had an email there in the filing today, the exhibit, there was
Mhm.
an email between her and the reporter from, I think it was WTHR. Do you remember his name? I've forgotten his
Not
name.
it's not Russ McQuaid.
No,
It's
Dave, maybe? Oh, I forget it. But Dave Banger, maybe? No, that's not him. That he's with Journal Cur. I forget his name, but anyways, he had an email exchange with Judge Gall directly, and she did state in that email that they would be released after sentencing the
yes,
exhibits. Yeah.
yeah, and that's pretty standard. I mean,
Mhm.
I think they even did the same thing in another high profile case just recently, and I'm blanking on which one it was,
Oh, I know
and
what
it's not
it was.
and it's not important, but but yeah, that's that's not surprising to me.
Mhm.
Um,
But just to be clear, we're talking about 2 completely separate sets
yes,
of there will be overlap, but I
yeah,
mean,
some of the depots and things like that. Yeah,
mhm.
and some of the like the statements Alan made to like of course like those were all exhibits, things he did when he was in Westville, things that
Yeah, I mean, we had exhibits for
he
Dr.
spoke
Waller
with
for confession,
Holman.
all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah. Um,
Which obviously won't be released.
Not right now, of course not. Yeah, and they probably will be renumbered. Um, but no, as far as the kind of you know, the Tobin, William Tobin, motion to eliminate. I was kind of surprised when I saw that when it came out the other day because, you know, one, it wasn't a name I either I'd slept on it or I just hadn't I wasn't aware of it. And so that was interesting to me to be like, okay, well, who's this dude?
Yep.
And I know that you've prepared a video that kind of gives your thoughts. Well, I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I briefly run through the filing. I found some interesting things for Tobin, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I run through it, and we can chat about it after everybody watches it. Sound
Okay, and
good?
if that sounds great to me, if you want to share your screen with me, I can pull it up.
Okie dokie. Let's see. I am sharing it, I think.
Okay,
Can you see? Yeah, okay. There we go.
and then let me see if I can move this so the size is better. Do you want us
Okay.
off screen or do you want
Yeah, leave us off screen for yeah, no, leave us off screen for this. It's
oh,
only 7 minutes. Then I'll just press play. You just give me word there and I'll do it.
no, I'm just playing. Sorry.
Okay. We're good?
Okay. We are golden.
Okay. On Friday, September 27th, 2024, prosecuting attorney Nick McClellan filed a motion in limine to request that Judge Gall have a hearing outside the presence of the jury to determine whether defense witness William A. Tobin will be allowed to testify as an expert in the upcoming trial of Richard Allen. The state seeks to prohibit defense witness William Tobin from testifying about firearm examination until a relevance hearing is held. Tobin is a forensic metallurgist but lacks expertise in firearms examination. McClellan cited a similar case, the state of Indiana versus Caden Smith in Marion County, where Tobin's testimony was also excluded in January 2024. Attorneys Andrew Baldwin and David Hennessy represented Smith in that triple murder case for which he was recently convicted and sentenced. The main reason that state believes Mr. Tobin should not be allowed to testify is that he is not an expert in the field of firearms examination, and his testimony would lack relevance and scientific reliability, potentially confusing the jury. The AFTE theory of identification, as mentioned in the motion, is a methodology followed by most firearm examiners, including those at the Indiana State Police, and another defense firearms witness, Dr. Eric Warren. Mr. Tobin criticizes this widely accepted methodology as flawed. It is the basis for how firearms examiners identify and analyze tool marks and ballistic evidence. While McClellan stated in paragraph number 6 of this motion that this is what Tobin's expected testimony will be, I do think there's a possibility that part of Tobin's expert testimony may be in the field of forensic metallurgy, if, evidence is presented by the state that the unspent round found at the crime scene matches other rounds recovered during the search of Allen's home at 1967 Whiteman Drive. A total of 19 rounds were recovered in various places within Allen's home, in addition to a Winchester Elite ammunition box. Tobin spent 26 years as the chief metallurgist working for the FBI in the bullet lead analysis lab. An investigative report conducted by 60 Minutes and the Washington Post, combined with scientific evidence presented by Bill Tobin, resulted in the FBI announcing in September 2005 that they would no longer perform bullet lead analysis linking fragments and rounds discovered at crime scenes to evidence recovered for other rounds in the homes of suspects.
Aside from eyewitness testimony, some of the most believable evidence presented in criminal cases in the United States comes from the FBI crime lab in Quantico, Virginia. Part of its job is to test and analyze everything from ballistics to DNA for state and local prosecutors around the country, introducing scientific credibility to often murky cases. But a 6-month investigation by 60 Minutes and the Washington Post last November showed that there are hundreds of defendants imprisoned around the country who were convicted with the help of a now discredited forensic tool, and that the FBI never notified them or their lawyers or the courts that their cases may have been affected by faulty testimony. The science called bullet lead analysis was used by the FBI for 40 years in thousands of cases, and some of the people it helped put in jail may be innocent. For years, the FBI believed that the lead in bullets had unique chemical signatures, and that by breaking them down and analyzing them, it was possible to match bullets not only to a single batch of ammunition coming out of a factory, but to a single box of bullets. And that's what the FBI did in the case of Lee Wayne Hunt, tying a bullet fragment found at the house where the murders took place to a box of bullets the prosecutors linked to Hunt.
I'll put it exactly the way it sounded to me and the way I believe it to be. He said that this box of bullets is the same box of bullets was used to kill these people, made on about the same time.
I think everybody in the courtroom assumed that this was valid evidence.
Richard Rosen is Hunt's attorney.
How important do you think it was to your client's conviction?
I thought it was very important to our client's conviction. It was a single piece of physical evidence corroborating their story. And it came from the mountaintop.
The FBI first used bullet lead analysis while investigating the assassination of John F. Kennedy, trying to match pieces of bullets discovered at Dealey Plaza with bullets found in Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle. By the 1980s, the FBI was routinely using it to link bullet fragments found at a crime scene with bullets found in the possession of a suspect, almost always in cases where more reliable ballistics tests were impossible.
Could you run like a standard ballistics test on these?
No, they're too deformed for the conventional ballistics examinations.
Bill Tobin, a former chief metallurgist for the FBI, says the Quantico lab was the only place in the country that did bullet lead analysis, and the assertion that you could actually match a bullet fragment to a specific batch or box of bullets went unchallenged for 40 years, until Tobin retired in 1998 and decided to do his own study, discovering that the basic premise had never actually been scientifically tested.
FBI lab personnel testified that you could match these fragments to this bullet.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, what did you find out?
It hadn't been based on science at all, but rather had been based on subjective belief for over 4 decades.
So what you're saying is that this is junk science?
That's correct. It's worthless as a forensic tool.
Tobin spent months buying and testing bullets and consulting with manufacturers, and found that bullets from the same batch weren't chemically uniform, that bullets from the same box didn't always match, and that it was statistically possible for every bullet manufactured in the U.S. to have tens of millions of twins.
Back in 2002, the FBI lab asked the National Academy of Sciences to conduct an independent review of comparative bullet lead analysis. And 18 months later, its National Research Council came out with a report calling into question 30 years of FBI testimony. It found the model the FBI used for interpreting results was deeply flawed, and that the conclusion that bullet fragments could be matched to a box of ammunition so overstated that it was misleading under the rules of evidence.
Am I still here?
You are still here. Yeah, no, that was good.
Yeah, it was interesting, I thought.
So
we got to look at Tobin. I have to be honest. I wasn't really sure if that was a real picture of him on his LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it was.
And he's been around a long time.
Yeah. Yep. So,
I mean, I pulled up his resume. I don't know why. I don't know how I found a PDF of his actual resume.
Did you?
Yeah. And you know, and a lot of it's there's a disclaimer on the bottom of every page where you know it basically says that that he's solely is the one providing that these these things are true. But I mean, some of the cases, and it's a vague. It's he has a category on. Sorry, what?
There's a disclaimer on his resume.
Well, no. Like on the bottom of each page, it says this curriculum vital was furnished by William A. Tobin to interested parties for informational purpose only. Okay. No contractual relationship exists, so it's just it wasn't by him.
Nice.
But he has a section in here called noteworthy and sample cases. I don't know if does that mean he worked on these cases or are they just cases that support things that he believes. But I mean,
yeah, okay.
But I mean, it's the TW-800 aircraft disaster from '96 off of JFK, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Olympic Park bombing in Atlanta. I mean, all sorts of giant things. So I'm like, I don't know if he worked and was involved in any of that, or if they're just examples of cases that correlate to his findings and other things. I'm not sure. I've not seen on any of his stuff is anything really related to unspent rounds. And of course, as the metal guy, I would think he would have knowledge in that. But I mean, none of the material he's written, nothing that I'm finding at least, has him focused on that kind of thing. It says he's testified as an expert witness in 301 local, state, and federal criminal and civil matters in 46 states.
Yeah. I mean,
clearly this guy he's highly qualified.
Yes.
In the field of what's the word?
Well, it's metallurgy. And this is why I do think that it's possible that I just think there might be a little bit more to this motion in limine than just simply, striation marks and extraction, whatever for the weapon. I think we could be into, it makes sense to me. I mean, the guy, that paper that I showed that he did the paper on the lead bullet analysis composition and whatnot that the FBI used, that was from 2004. And then they did, essentially he basically debunked his own damn job, all of them basically. It's kind of crazy, really. Like,
right. I mean,
I mean, I know that he works with the Innocence Project. Sorry, and I think you found some information on that.
I pulled up the article. But most of the writings that he's done and research papers that he's done and been published for, almost every single one of them that I'm seeing, basically is focused on discrediting traditional, basically calling it junk science, like he did in that thing.
Right.
And so I mean, clearly that's he's very strong of that opinion,
right?
And that's I'd be interested to read some of this. I was looking up the case. There's not a ton of stuff with that Caden case as far as like him being not allowed to testify. although some of the case details, because I was interested, like like one, Baldwin and Hennessy were the attorneys, but just to see, like what similarities were there in these two cases that would make them tie it into into this filing. And I mean, there were several differences. I mean, first of all, they were all fired rounds, of course. And they found, like dozens of shell casings at the crime scene and bullets, in the bodies and around. And then they found the gun in his home. So I mean, I guess you could argue just like they found a bullet at the crime scene in Delphi, and then they found Alan's gun at home. But I wasn't quite sure what exactly made those two things connect, other than the fact that the focus on the testify on the testimony was supposed to be on it was supposed to be on the firearm examination in general and not just the metallurgy.
Right.
Because then why does the defense have a second firearm examination expert?
Bingo. So that's another reason why I think that there's a little something different with him. And I think, well, I mean, we're going to find out, because like to your point, we're either going to do it during trial without the jury and we're going to address it then and there,
Mhm.
or we're going to have another pretrial hearing. And we were discussing this and you had some great points. There's not a lot of time left to coordinate that between pre-trial, amongst the judge and the state and the defense. So it's quite
No, I mean there's literally 8 days.
yeah. And I guess the question is, are there other things? Because I find it highly likely that there's going to be, more offers of proof by the defense to present some things. I think that there's going to be probably an attempt to suppress some of the evidence. And I mean, they're either going to do it pre-trial or they're going to do it in the trial, and they're going to keep taking the jury out, right?
Right. What I mean, and I agree with you as far as, of course, there's always going to be unanswered motions leading right up until the trial. I think when it comes to like a motion in limine, we know that requires scheduling of witnesses. It requires the attorneys to prepare their questions for all that, for that hearing. I don't see them devoting a day to this motion in limine before the trial, when it's just as easily something. Plus, they have to, you're asking Tobin to then come in, give up a day of his, and then come back for trial if he's allowed. I think it makes much more sense that they will have him come in during trial. They'll have the jury leave. They will hold the motion in limine. I think she will probably then make a decision. Probably, she'll probably take a recess and then make the decision. And then if she decides he can testify, he'll probably then be the next witness. The jury will come back in. If he's not, then the jury will never know about it. And they'll move on to the next thing. But as far as like other unresolved motions and stuff, I mean, we absolutely could see a pretrial thing. And if you think about it, I mean, they're holding an event on the 17th where media can come in and take photos and things like that at the Carroll County Courthouse. So, I mean, technically, if they had enough unresolved issues that they, couldn't take care of them at court, because usually that's what they do, is they'll just, when they get this close to it, they'll just, unless it's something pressing that has to be done before trial, they'll just, in the morning, they'll kind of, they'll, for the first hour, they'll, kind of handle unresolved things without the jury being there. but there is a day, there's the 17th, that, you know, technically, I guess she could have them all show up at 8:30 or 9 a.m. They could hold hearings and kind of iron out whatever they need to,
Well, don't
and then be
forget.
ready to go Friday.
Right. Well, don't forget, we have a big one. The defense had filed the request to take the jury to the crime scene, and she did say that she wasn't going to rule on that until after she received the state's response, which we now have, and also until after the
After the
jury
jury,
was chosen.
right,
So
which means during trial, or like said on the, you know, so like she'll make that decision. Like I think people will come into court one morning, and she'll be like, oh, and I have an order. She's like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, I'm issuing my order on the jury visit. I mean, that's something that's gonna be like, I think, done in 5 minutes.
I don't like, do you think that the trial is starting the morning of the 17th? Because that is
No,
no, it's not. The travel
no,
day
no,
was
no.
left out. Like,
Yeah, the I think, but what I was saying is, I mean, if they really felt like they needed a day
yeah, yeah,
before trial, the 17th would be the day
yeah.
that she
Oh,
could
for
end up,
sure.
she could expect the attorneys
Yeah.
to be there in the morning, take
Mhm.
care of that stuff. But I don't think they will. I think that, you know, I think it's very common that when I watch court cases, you know, they'll, you know, court will, you know, come into session at 9 a.m., let's say, and, you know, they, you know, sometimes won't have the jury come in until 10 o'clock because they're handling other motions, they're handling other unresolved things, and then they bring the jury in, so they kind of handle those things throughout the trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, is the most logical.
Yeah, I agree, unless we have more filings, which I think we're gonna get. Like, I
Well, of
just
course we'll get more filings. I just
I
don't know, I just don't know what would be so consequential that it has to be.
suppression of evidence, offers of proof. I don't know. I can
Those
see
can those can all be done during trial. All they have to do is have the jury walk out.
And what about this ex parte? What do you think that's all about?
I mean, no, I mean, I don't. None of us do, right? That isn't that the point of it being an ex parte? We're just not used to the ex partes being kept private. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Touche.
kidding.
Well, that's only the second time we've seen something on the on the CCS, on the chronological case summary on my case, where there's no description of what the ex parte is about. Typically, when they've asked for funding, there's information in the title of the ex parte. We've only seen one other
Mhm.
one, and I think it was April 2024 that was just ex parte motion filed by the defense. Nothing indicated what it was about. So I
Right.
found that interesting. Who
And
knows?
who
Could be
and
anything.
yeah, and this one was filed by the um was this one filed by the defense or the prosecution? I'm drawing
Defense.
a blank.
Yeah.
That's right. Um yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It could, I wonder what it could be.
I don't know, but this quiz.
Maybe Robert Baston wrote another letter. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Oh no. Oh, oh.
Maybe they moved him to they moved him to Cass County. Sorry.
Don't say that.
I'm
Oh Lord.
completely.
Did you happen to go on the Vine link for Richard Allen? Because it actually shows shows him as a black male on there. On it's incorrect.
Vine is about as correct as Intellius.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
Because like, remember the day that they said, I remember the day we all got the message on Vine that Richard Allen had been released from custody.
Oh shit. Yeah, it's definitely wrong. Somebody needs to look at that. It's not very reliable. I have to be honest.
I mean, you just have to then cross source anything you see on there.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
In my opinion.
don't we cross check everything, Aspen?
Well, of course I do. We do. Yeah, I mean, and I usually don't stop at one,
I know. I know. We have
but I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's kind of more
it's
like traditional journalism as far
yeah.
as, you know, if you
Yeah.
know, if I speculate on something, I clearly say I'm speculating or I'm
Yeah.
joking or something. But if I present something as that I'm saying is fact, I mean, it's fact.
Yeah. 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 Stickler for details. Stickler for details and a love of PDFs.
Well, accountability to me is very important, and I
I
think that
oh, of course. Yes. I need to see that resume.
Oh, here, let me.
I'm teasing. You know me. I'm the same as you. I like to see all the
As soon as we get off of here,
things.
as soon as we get off of here, I'll send it to you because I'm on my phone right now, and I don't want to mess up
Yeah.
the recording if I go too far out of it.
Are we gonna just briefly touch base on? We actually haven't talked about the motion to go to visit the crime scene. The state's reply, Nick's response to that. Did you have anything that you wanted to point out on that?
I mean, we haven't touched on it, but I mean, it's not necessarily from the filing, but um, I I always support jury visits. I think they're great. Um, there are a lot of factors in this case that give me pause with a jury visit. It's private property. Um, the terrain, it's not easy to get down there. I think that I think I mean, you're not going to have a 75-year-old with bad hips and knees going down to that crime scene. It's not going to happen. Um, the bridge looks different. The It's still going to be early enough in the year that the foliage and everything is still going to be around. When I was there in May, I mean, there was, ankle deep, not clover, but just like that, like not we kind of like growth over the ground. So it was unrecognizable from what it looked like in February. In February, when there are no trees on the leaves, you can see the bridge from where it is. In May, you couldn't. So mid-October, it's still going to be more iffy. You're not going to have the same landscape. Um, depending on which way they take them down, the like if they were to come in from the north end of the bridge down that trail that comes through the Mears property, um, that trail in 2017 it was not nearly as established as it is now. Not to mention the trail itself was not paved in 2017. And I think a lot of people underestimate the fact that created a huge difference in a lot of things. Even when they talk about the juvenile witnesses passing, bridge guy, when you're on an unpaved walking trail, you can be 2 feet away from someone and you're at a foot lower elevation. So when someone says they come up to your shoulder, I mean, you're on completely different levels of the ground. Whereas now, that trail it's raised about 8 inches off of, the ground, and it's paved. The bridge was, again, like I said, totally different. And I think that something as simple as the creek level could have an impact on a jury's opinion that may or may not be fair, because I can say even when I was there for the first time in May, I was there 2 days in a row, and the creek, both in clarity, speed, and the water level, was drastically different from one day to the next because it had rained that evening.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a jury going out there and I'm looking at that creek and it happens to be full and it's the water's moving fast, I'm gonna look at that and be like, how'd they get across there? Whereas if I walk out there and it's lower and stiller, and it's going to seem much more feasible if I can see the island in the middle, or I can see where the rocks are, where they could possibly have crossed.
Yeah, on the flip side
So
of that,
there's so many,
water in the
but there's just so many factors that are different than they were in February 2017. I don't know how much value, other than seeing the remoteness of
Mhm,
it. But I
mhm.
think they could actually, I think they could get that without actually like going physically to the crime scene. If they wanted to walk them out on the bridge, see the area, do all of that, I that would be,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can understand that. But I mean, traipsing them down onto Ryan Logan's property now, and that's not an easy in or out.
Well, the other thing, the flip side of what you're saying as well, it goes both ways. Like, if there's no water in the creek, was he really looking down, looking at fish? Like, there's all
Well,
kinds of arguments to be made. And as far as the crime scene itself, their recovery location on Logan's property, there's no way in hell that they're taking them there, in my opinion. Now,
it said they are.
why didn't they? No, I mean, that's not going to get approved. I just don't see that. But you could definitely take them to the Mears entrance and walk them to the bridge, and get a general feel, like you say, for the isolation. Not to mention the fact that you have, you didn't have what the witnesses saw out there, and like you say about the trail. Like, I don't think they're allowed to discuss things. I mean, they can in the courtroom, but while they're out there, it's not like they can just, point things out. Or
No, they're not. No, I believe that when they get there, they can give a brief overview of something. But I mean, not like an opening statement. But I do think that
Right.
they can say like a little something,
Yeah, that
and
would make
then, but then the attorneys have to be, like they're not the ones that like lead it. It's
right.
it's the court employee. It's the
Yeah.
the court employees that are going to lead the that cause. But so
Why
like,
didn't
so
the
it's hard
defense
because like I said, because I support jury visits. I think that you're helpful in a lot of cases. I just think there's so many factors in this specific case that that are so different than they were in 2017 in February. I don't know if I just don't know if I see the full value in it.
Why didn't the defense ask for them to view the Mears entrance, where the girls literally got dropped off? I mean, I don't understand.
Did they specify where they wanted them to start at? I
They
think
didn't
they just said
they
the
didn't say
trails and
anything about that at all.
right. So I mean, they may very well, um, see that area. I
I
mean,
just think
you've been out there. I mean, you see, how I always think I find it very interesting when like to even hear the word Mears lot, because that's not a parking lot. I mean, it's like 3 cars can fit there, and
yeah. I mean, um, I think it definitely would be beneficial. I think it's a logistical nightmare. And what happens if someone injures themselves on the private property?
well,
But I
that's what I
mean,
said. Yeah, I mean, you're on private property. There's liability issues.
no permission needed. My understanding is the court can order it. Like, I
I mean,
don't I don't believe, I think they can do that. But I mean, just from the logistical perspective of keeping the jurors safe, the drones go up, this and that. Like, it's a logistical nightmare.
only in Delphi would we have jury visit on day 1, and then by day 2 we're out of alternate jurors because sorry.
Oh, oh, gee. I don't know. The only thing I can really see them doing is like busing them to the Mears entrance.
But anyone see the CPS and they want to see in which did you go to
Drive by.
Did
you
you
know,
go to where it is when
I
you were
gotta
there?
tell you something. I was up. I had a, I did not have a lot of time.
Uh-huh.
But I was up and down that road a few times, and I'm damned if I
You
could
would
see where that
you
CPS was.
that's my point. If
No,
you if you didn't know that there had ever been a building there, you
yeah,
wouldn't know.
no,
I mean, I drove through there 2 or 3 times before I actually was like, oh wait, like this is it, like because
yeah,
it's all overgrown now and you can't see any. So I mean, so when they were like, oh, we'll take them, and I guess it's just to show the distance, of that, he would have had to have traveled back, which that is smart, especially if you're going to have someone like Sarah Carborough testifying about passing him on 300 and the Harvest Store camera. Those things I think are important for a jury to see, and
yeah.
that's great.
But
Those,
but I will
and then
say,
again, and there still are factors, like I pointed out to a lot of people that I don't think a lot of people ever pay attention to, is that one, if you're walking on 300, that Harvest camera doesn't pick you up. A vehicle does, which is why it picked up when Sarah Carbo drove by, and
yeah,
Rich, or and BG had already passed by, so it was from the backside. But there's also a very large, what do you call the trees that an evergreen that don't lose their leaves? Um,
yeah, coniferous.
and that camera like faces right towards the road, and that tree now, because of the
Yeah,
side, like blocks half of the view of that
and
camera.
you know what? The point that I'll argue, Google Maps, like, or not. I mean, Google Maps clearly shows that, or I guess maybe it's the video. I don't know that I've gone on. Do they have the street view? I must. I don't know. Do they have street view on that
I
300?
I had never noticed that evergreen tree, um,
Um,
until I went there, and it was the first thing I noticed, because
okay.
I was like, how does that camera pick up anything? That tree blocks the whole, like, the whole
Yeah.
view.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. There's enough videos on YouTube of people driving and showing that a video is more than adequate to show some of those places, like the CPS building, the Hoosier Harvester tree and camera setup and everything, because it looks
Right.
exactly the same. Look, it's exact, right? I mean, you get that. What you what you don't
I had watched countless videos of those things. I got a different effect when I went out there.
I didn't get. No, I'm talking about the point, like the camera location and things like that. But what I was going to say is, and even at the bridge, it's very, I found it to be very exact to what I was expecting. Like, I did not go down to the crime scene, okay? But everything that I've seen on video and camera and everything, it was exactly the only thing that I was surprised at was how long the trail was. Was it the 501 or the 505? I get them mixed up. But the
Well,
one that goes from the Freedom Bridge and is, well, it
you,
splits off. The one's paved and the one isn't. But the length of that from the Freedom Bridge and the tree covering and everything, I was quite surprised by how covered it was along that trail.
right, and of course the leaves weren't on the trees in
Yeah,
February,
yeah,
but but
true.
I mean, I see, and I have to disagree a little bit, because
Mhm.
I've seen countless videos of that too, and there's definitely aspects to it that don't translate on a video. I mean, I've I've seen countless videos of people on that bridge, and and one of the very first things when I walked out onto that bridge is is how I kept saying that if nothing bad had happened here, this would be the most beautiful, serene place and peaceful. And I'm like, I can absolutely see why people would be drawn to it and want to be there and want to go there. Um, Knowing what we know happened there, of course, changes that all. But, prior to February 13th, 2017, I 100% understand the appeal to spending time out there and going out there. I stood at that bridge and I was the only one out there. It was, it was just getting ready to storm. It was
Yeah.
gorgeous. And I mean, of course I was overwhelmed with sadness but I also couldn't escape the fact that there was a feeling of like, of like how I can see where this place, it holds such a peace and sereneness, if this thing had not happened there. And now I will say one perspective I don't think anyone can get without going out there is, in no map and no video or anything like that, really does justice as to the absolute zero reason anyone would go there and park at the CPS building.
Yeah.
Because it's so so far away from everything. And it also makes then no sense if you're going to exit the area that that bridge guy came out of. That's a long walk. That's a long walk down 300.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know.
And it's not, and it's a busier road than you think. I mean, it's a gravel, like little 1-lane road, but I mean, you'll see 10 or 15 cars go down it when you're on it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just think that I do think that it's worthwhile for the jury to be there, but I do think they can adequately show with camera, with footage and
Right.
whatever they have. I mean, it's an expansive spot,
Right.
and there was a lot of territory to cover. Like he did walk a long way, and he did do a lot of things. Like it's we're gonna find out, but I mean, it's isolated, and it absolutely is the spot where a local would go. You would just not happenstance on that location. You just wouldn't.
No, I mean, there are locals that didn't know it was there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, one thing, to me, I think the most logical thing that I think that they should do is, take the jury out there. I mean, goodness, it's 2.5 minutes from the courthouse, or 4-minute drive, I think. I think they could drive them, down 300. They could show them the CPS lot. They could show them the Mears entrance. I think they could walk them to the bridge, walk them out on the bridge, show them that area. I think they can get the full expanse of it all from that. I don't think that, I don't think they need to go down to the crime scene.
No.
I do still think that, they need to be, there are factors that are going to, play into their mindsets that, if the water's murky that day, there's going to be jurors that are going to look at that water and be like, you couldn't see fish from here. But I can tell you, on the first day I was there, when the water was much stiller and clear, I did not see any fish in the water, but you could have if there had been any.
Yeah.
Because I could absolutely see down into the water. Now, the second day after it had rained, you could not. Like, either it was cloudy and muddy, or so there's no way you would not have been able to see fish in it. And I just think the physicality of crossing the creek is going to look very different in a jury's mind depending on the water level.
Yeah. I just think from a cost benefit analysis that, the costs are probably a bit greater than the benefit, and that you can adequately show things. But I mean, I think it would be a good idea if they can coordinate it and make it happen in a safe manner, that, and everything can be logistically arranged. I don't think it's a bad idea. I do not see them bringing them to the crime scene.
They should climb that railing.
Yeah,
they should take them out there, climb that railing, get on the old part of the bridge, cross over, not tell Brad Weber they're coming, and then they
Oh,
should take them down that
no,
hill, cross the creek. I'm kidding.
no way. That's never happening. That South End is elusive. That South End was another elusive thing for me.
Yeah.
I was surprised that road that yeah, anyway. It's definitely something I want to explore again.
Well,
Over
I told you
there,
I ended up
not
on the private
explore,
drive
but
one.
I'd like to try to see, you know, see a little bit more the locations just because it's really, you
You need
know,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite an expansive area, really.
It is.
That
I mean, I when I was there in July, I went down and I went over Wilson Bridge, which is gorgeous. And you can definitely tell why that's where, people get in like the kayaks and canoes, from
mhm.
from there. That
I
because it's a very pretty bridge, and it's a very pretty part of the creek. Uh,
I
Canal
was
system
very
itself is
sorry?
beautiful. And I said just the canal systems themselves
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Delphi are beautiful, and the parks.
I was shocked at how many bridges there are.
There are a
There
lot of
are a lot of bridges there. I
there are a lot of bridges all over the Midwest.
yeah, yeah, like, yeah, I guess. I wasn't really expecting that, and I also wasn't expecting it to be so there was, like, all kinds of like, Riley Park. Did you go there? Riley
Yeah,
Park? Yeah, I
it's
mean, this is
beautiful.
right there in town. That is
Well,
just an amazing spot.
right. I mean,
What a setup.
presumably, if Richard Allen is the guy, if I said he's the guy, um, I mean, Riley Park's basically right in his backyard because it was not. I mean, it's right there by Whiteman Drive.
Everything is right there.
But I mean, to the point where I'm like,
Like,
I would wonder how often would someone sit and lurk in that park and
well,
think,
and Bicycle Bridge Road, and people walk there all the time at there's trail system that goes around. If you park at the Pizza
Pizza
Hut and
Hut.
then you walk around, you can come right out at the BP gas station.
It's a
And there's
gorgeous town.
and then also there's a tunnel, a little oh, I measured it. I forget. I don't know. It's the width of the highway there where the roundabout is. And you go under the tunnel when you leave the Pizza Hut, you go under, and then you can walk the trail all the way to the Canal Commons, which is where they have all the
Hmm.
like pilgrimage place and all that. And Betsy Blair walked that all the time. She often walked that, and I know that from somebody that knows
Right.
her and, like, knows that she walked that, and there's a lot of trails over there. It's very common for people to walk
Of
those trails,
course.
but there's a lot of them. Like, I was very surprised at how many. Like you say, well, Riley Park, right there in town, but it's all very secluded.
Right. And like I was telling you, like the first time I went out to the bridge, I parked at the lot, like the main, like, Freedom Bridge parking lot. And, I was out there for 2.5 hours, probably. I was the only soul.
Hmm.
I did not pass anyone. I did not see anyone. Nothing, so I mean, like, there are these beautiful like areas, and um, and you definitely don't have, overcrowding or anything like that. By the time I left, I was kind of like, oh, okay, it's starting to storm and it is getting dark. Probably time to like get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm alone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a quaint little town there, and there's all kinds of, like, almost call them nooks and crannies of little places to discover around there from the outdoor perspective, really.
When you
There's
get
an
that
awful
and you get that in a lot of the other smaller towns in the area too. I've heard Wabash, Indiana is gorgeous. Um,
okay.
I mean, little downtown Flora is cute.
Yeah, I haven't been there. It was kind of a whirlwind to go to those hearings, and as you know, long days and nights and everything else.
Right. I did. I wanted to see some of the some of the roads back around the properties, and that's how I accidentally ended up on the private drive. And I was like, I missed the
Oh,
first like no trespassing signs, and then like you come to a point where you can't miss the fact that you're not supposed to be where you are. There's like 5 signs and like things that are
yeah,
like you're on camera, and there's like
yeah,
I could not have
yeah,
turned that vehicle around fast enough.
right.
Well,
Yeah. I could see stumbling about, like, I mean,
because you're
that whole
driving on a road and all of a sudden you're just on a private road.
yeah, it's quite, like I said, nooks and crannies around there. Next thing you know, I don't know, I'm actually quite good with directions, and I really got mixed up when I was going around Delphi. It seems silly because it's not a big spot, and I'm
And
used to
it's
being
built on a
slowed
grid.
down. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it was disorienting somehow.
I would get confused like as far as which things were on which side, like
Mm,
because I knew that like CVS um and like the doghouse and all of those things were on one side, and that the
yeah,
Freedom Bridge was on the other. And it was I could but it like I'm standing at a courthouse and you told me which way is the Freedom
yes.
Bridge. I'd have to check. I would always have to second guess myself and be like,
Mhm.
and then you pass the high school and
And the
um
cell service was spotty, wasn't it? Did
I
you have
didn't
that?
I did not have that problem, but
Okay.
I mean I know some people have. I
Mhm.
I didn't have that problem when I was out there. Now when I was in Logansport, I had a little bit of an issue at one point when I was staying out in the woods. But again, I was staying out in the woods
Oh,
at
okay.
at like um
Yeah.
a cabin,
Oh,
like a nice cabin.
yeah. I didn't go to Logansport, but well, I
Well,
get
it wasn't technically, it was between Delphi and Logansport off
okay.
of
Yeah.
25, is it 29 or 25?
Well, I have to get to the Memorial, Ballpark because that was the other place I didn't get to.
It's beautiful.
I know, I can see. I was in awe of it. I could not believe it. And
Yeah,
even, there were a lot of things that were just
right.
I wanted to spend more time at, and,
When I had the benefit of being there in May for 9 days
yeah,
when they because the hearings were canceled then, so
right.
I
Yeah,
mean I had the benefit of having those 9 days to really actually go and look at all those things. But there's still a ton of things I didn't do the time. I
yeah.
didn't go over the Wilson Bridge. There were several things I hadn't gone to or seen. I still haven't eaten at Pizza King. Um so
Yeah, yeah,
um but who knows, if I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the, you know, trial or not. I would like to, but it's expensive and there's a lot of factors that go into it. So if I can swing it, I'll be there. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I hope you can.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, we've done well here. We've kept it at around an hour again.
Yeah.
Well, this time we have a little bit of an ending. That other one we did last week, it was a little abrupt.
And who knows? I'm sure that tomorrow we'll have a new filing come out or something, and then we can record another video.
Yeah, it's full steam ahead, Aspen.
Right. Well, and we do, and and we can still go over briefly, not tonight, because we should get going. But the trial decorum, and maybe whatever comes out next.
Sure. Okay.
So, well, thank you so much for joining me, Turbo. And oh, and for anyone that's wondering, the background on the screen is the stained glass at the top of the rotunda in the Carroll County Courthouse. I just played with the colorings.
It's beautiful.
So,
Love it.
but we want to thank everyone for watching, and I always forget to do this. I'm going to remember. Anyone that's been watching this premiere and they are a mod, thank you very much for
Yes.
for everything you do. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Aspen, for having me.
Okay. Until next time.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.